Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause. Ladies, off to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'll try to talk with all the noise. I'll do my best. So great to see everybody here. We will try to introduce this idea that FLNG is not anymore a niche concept. It's a provable, scalable solution that can help unlock a lot of the gas resources in the various regions where we can see that there is stranded gas resources across Africa. So let's explore how FLNG can actually fit into the wider strategy, gas strategy for the continent. So starting off from this slide, let's have a look at the bigger picture. Since 2010, Africa has discovered 76 billion barrels of oil equivalent. And what is interesting, what is quite striking, is that 75% of these resources is gas. However, only 10% of this is currently producing, compared to approximately 40% of the liquids. So on the picture, you can see on the east side, this long list of gas discoveries in Mozambique. And of all of this, really only the first phase of Coral is producing. As we move to the west, we have a lot of discoveries in the Orange Basin, in the Kwanza Basin, in the Lower Congo Basin. They are all colored in green and red so that you can identify what type of discovery is. So, and again, as you can see on the west side, only the Greater Tortue project has come on stream, producing in Mauritania and Senegal. However, if you pay a bit more attention, in deeper green, you can see all the oil projects that have been brought on stream. So, striking difference. However, we have to say that in the last 3 years, we can see how things have really started changing in terms of FLNG application in the continent. So, we thought that it would be interesting to try to understand why gas developments have lagged behind, why there is this disparity between oil and gas discoveries. Although actually companies have announced that gas is a focus for them as a transition fuel. So infrastructure is a major barrier. So if we look on the left-hand side of the slide, what we can see is the 5 biggest oil producers in Africa. And in blue, in light blue, you can see liquids production, and the various dots is the gas production. So if we start, for instance, for Algeria, that has the highest gas production in the continent, that can be nicely correlated with the fact that there is an extensive gas network in Algeria. And also, the other reason that we have seen all these gas discoveries is due to the proximity into the European gas market. Similarly, if we move to the second biggest gas producer in Nigeria, in Africa, Nigeria, again there we have a big gas market and pipelines that can help to move the gas from production straight to the end user. And then we have Egypt, which, although with considerably lower oil discoveries, oil production, the gas production has been very high, especially since the discovery of Zohr, and Egypt with an extensive gas pipelines network and also LNG infrastructure through which they can export gas to Europe and to other regions in the world. Again, they are taking advantage of the existence of this infrastructure to commercialize the gas. So you can see how there is a correlation between gas commercialization and infrastructure and proximity to market, which are actually some of the basic characteristics of sustainable gas developments. But let's talk about FLNG a bit more. Let's understand what are the pros and cons, the advantages and the disadvantages of this technology. So FLNG is a fully integrated liquefaction facility placed offshore directly above the gas field. It eliminates the need for long pipelines and onshore infrastructure, and in this way it reduces the time to market and operational and technical challenges. It is also a partial solution to above-ground risk wherever the above-ground risk is considerable. It's ideal for monetizing stranded deep-water gas resources, supports the energy transition, which is aligned with the strategies that we have seen from a lot of companies in the last 2-3 years. And it also enables gas to power and LNG exports. It enhances regionally energy security, gives opportunities for different export routes, either within the country, within the region, or internationally. And essentially, it gives, there is optionality. But again, it's not the silver bullet. FLNG projects are technically complex, they have high upfront costs, they have unique engineering challenges, depending on the environment in which they operate. The integration of gas processing, liquefaction, storage, and offloading in one single vessel is highly complex. It creates a risk for future phases of the project, as there isn't too much flexibility in terms of extending the facilities or making them bigger, or in terms of other operational issues, for example, increased gas production. So space constraint and motion at sea can be challenging, and in fact we have seen projects. One is the Zohr project in Egypt, where we know that water production has been one of the limiting factors and the reason that gas production has dropped over the past few years. And also the Greater Tortue project, we know that it has become considerably more complex due to currents, due to the deep water environment and the consequent currents that the engineering team had to deal with. Also, regulatory alignment from the host country is key. The increased capex required, the increased OPEX to operate these complex facilities can actually make the economics of the project very challenging. And finally, financing is another hurdle. Strong offtake agreements are one of the prerequisites to make the project economics work, and that's not always easy to unlock, to find the buyers depending on the region you're at. So I will pass over to my colleague Lucinda to give you an overview of the continent's gas production and to take you through some of the key projects that we have seen in Africa until now. And I will return with a small case study.
Okay. So let's just take a step back and have a look at the potential of the continent. So I really like this comparison chart just highlighting, we've all been talking about gas, and this just shows the huge potential the continent has. Because on the left, we have the oil production of our continent, and we can see the blue is our currently producing assets. The orange are those that have taken FID, and then the red chunk are those that are currently unsanctioned. And if we move to the right-hand side, that is the potential of the gas. And we have got a huge red chunk there. And if majority of those projects take FID, we are able to then equal or possibly even overtake the oil production of the continent. And given the strategic shift from oil towards gas, we expect that more of the FIDs are likely to actually go ahead for the gas, and we're likely to actually overtake the oil production on the continent in the next 10 or so years. So let's just break down the gas production. So this is only looking at the gas production on the continent, and I've broken it down to where is this gas production actually taking place. So we can see historically in 2015, the majority of the gas production came from onshore, And this is including Saharan Africa. So this will be, as Ismini showed you, your Saharan African countries that have access to the European market and the gas network and infrastructure. However, come around 2020 and now 2025, we're seeing a slow shift where more and more gas is being produced from offshore. And these are coming from majority of our FLNG developments, our main big projects that are developing our offshore gas. And we are predicting and forecasting that in 2030, almost half of the gas production can potentially be coming from offshore gas. And this is, part of this will be your Mozambique discoveries and LNGs that we are hoping will come online, and they contribute a significant portion to this offshore gas. So let's just now take a look at some of these LNG projects that are offshore that have created this increase in the last few years. So I'd just like to start in Cameroon. So this was the first FLNG development in Africa, and it was actually the world's first converted FLNG vessel as well. So these graphs are production graphs as well. So I'm a reservoir engineer and I love my production graphs. I think that they can tell us really interesting stories about what's going on. So on the left, I've got the total hydrocarbon production of Cameroon. So this is the oil and the gas production. And we can see that even with the oil production included, our Kribi FLNG accounts for about 1/3 of the country's total hydrocarbon production. And if we look then on the right at the commercial gas production, apart from the domestic obligation going to power generation, as well as another small Lugbaba gas production, majority of all of your gas is coming from the FLNG. So let's have a look at the history of this. So the Sanaga Sut field, which is the main gas production of this discovery, was actually discovered all the way back in 1979. The contract for this block was awarded in 2006, and production only started in 2013. So that was 30 years from when the field was first discovered to when it then came on production. And this was just a domestic market obligation. The FLNG then took FID in 2015, and Perenco managed to then get production to the FLNG in around 2.5 years. So we had startup in 2018. So the structure of this vessel is that Golar owns the vessel, and Perenco and SNH then pay a tariff, and it's a tolling system to use the vessel. And as it was also converted from an existing vessel, this decreased the capital cost significantly and allowed for the quick time to market that was seen. So for this project, only 500 BCF was assigned. So this just shows the relative, FLNG projects can be for large as well as for relatively small stranded gas volumes. But it did also require upgrading of onshore facilities. So the Bibaka onshore gas processing facilities needed to be increased from 40 million scf per day to 250 million scf per day, and that was a cost of around $800 million, as well as the installation of a 30,000 LPG unit. However, the economics of this project benefited from the Cameroon 2013 gas code, and that offered a number of tax waivers and incentives for the first 10 years of a project. And as this project was only an 8-year project, it meant that they were exempt from corporate income tax, value-added tax, and customs duties for the entire length of this project. So moving now to the Marine 12 FLNG development in Congo, which came on relatively recently. So the gas in these, so here again we can see that potentially the significant impact that these FLNG discoveries are having on the gas production of the countries, where apart from the Bangakai onshore gas that we are hoping to come on stream, the FLNG is having a significant impact on the gas production, and we know that we are expecting the phase 2 to come on stream before the end of this year, as the vessel has already set sail. However, the fields here, again, the gas fields, were discovered in 1979, 1981, but it wasn't until the oil fields in the contract block were discovered in 2012, 2015, that the fields actually were developed and brought on stream in 2015. And the reason for this short turnaround is that the fields were actually discovered during a high oil price period, and this just motivated a faster development. And it wasn't until then, in 2022, that FID was taken on the LNG. But here again, Eni managed to do an amazing turnaround time with a fast track of the Tango FLNG, which was an existing vessel. And because they managed to do such a fast track, they managed to make benefit from the high gas prices that we're seeing in 2022 due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And they sold their LNG on the spot market. So they weren't tied into any long-term contracts and could actually benefit from these high prices. The second phase that we are expecting on stream shortly, it was actually a new build vessel. So that was significantly more expensive, but they were able to then make it to specification and ensure that, that they are able to tie in any additional fields as they make new discoveries. And at the Congo Energy Investment Forum earlier this year, another company, Trident Energy in Congo, is also looking to potentially employ a similar technique to monetize the gas from their existing oil fields in Corsa. So this is another example, which is a little bit more unusual, is Perenco in Gabon. So they are actually wanting to monetize onshore gas, but using an nearshore FLNG development. So Perenco are the main gas production in the country, and there's currently 50 million scuffs per day going to 2 existing power plants. And they also recently commissioned an LPG plant at the end of 2023 with a capacity of 15 million tons per annum. So this was a culmination of several years' work, and actually started in November 2021 with amendments were signed with the Gabonese state, with one that included making it easier for Perenco to commercialize the gas from its field. So both the FLNG and the storage unit are being modified from existing vessels in the United Arab Emirates, with the project expected to cost approximately $1 to $2 billion. So the project requires an additional 100 million scuffs per day, and this will be sourced from the Kasa Conga field, which has already been producing small volumes to the domestic market, and then the Igonga field, which is currently still being appraised. The Ganga field is also currently supplying small volumes to the domestic market, and it may then be used in the future to supplement the FLNG development. So part of this development is LPG as well, and this will be used for the domestic market. So this additional supply, plus the one from the LPG facility, plus what is already being produced, should make Gabon self-sufficient in LPG, as well as making Gabon an LNG exporter, benefiting from the European prices that they can then get. So that is that from me. I'm going to now hand back to Ismini to take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
So I will be taking you through the last of the FLNG projects that we have in Africa. This is the Greater Tortue project in Senegal, Mauritania. So the FLNG unit has a capacity of 2.7 million tons per annum and began commercial operations actually in mid-2025. So it is a very recent project. There is a domestic gas obligation as part of the contract. However, we know that this is not able to be fulfilled at the moment due to the lack of the export pipeline. Both countries, we know that they're interested in going ahead with phase 2, as it will, as you can see, double the production, the gas production capacity. The LNG exports are commercialized exclusively by BP Gas Marketing. And based on the export cargo volumes and the information we have until now, the project is still wrapping up production. It is important to mention here that for Mauritania, this is the only field currently producing. So it is a key project for the revenue of the country. For Senegal, there is also the Sangomar oil field. So again, the GTA, which is producing 400 million scf per day, half of which goes to Mauritania, half to Senegal, it's actually the only gas-producing project. Some important things to consider. A very challenging project from a technical perspective. It's the deepest producing field in Africa, if not the deepest one of the deepest ones. So you can see that the water depth is 2,850 meters. And in order to overcome and manage all the risks associated with strong currents, they had to install the FPSO at a distance of 80 kilometers away from the field towards the shore, where they have put the FPSO and pre-treatment plant. And from there, gas is flowing into the LNG facility, which is located at a water depth of 30 meters and 10 kilometers from shore. There is even a wall built to try to protect the LNG facility from the strong currents. And now let's move to a small case study that we did for Angola. We focused on the Kwanza Basin, which in the past few years has mainly given us gas discoveries. Today, it is estimated that approximately 4.3 billion barrels of oil equivalent have been discovered in the basin, 60% gas, 40% liquids. Almost all of it is offshore. Until 2018, 2019, there was no legislation to encourage gas developments in the region. And until a year ago, a year and a half, really there wasn't much happening in the Kwanza Basin. Until a year and a half ago, where Total took actually FID for the first time in the Kwanza Basin. However, the project will not, the Camino project will not be developed as a gas development. It will be developed as a condensate development. And significant quantities of gas will be injected into the reservoir. So if we take a step back to see a bit the bigger picture of gas production in Angola, on the left-hand side, you can see gas production at the country level. In blue, you can see the current gas production. And we have seen the production dropping slightly in the last 2-3 years until recently, when the Sanalin gas projects from Chevron came on stream, and that actually brought the production back to about 900 million scf per day. We are also expecting in the next year, maybe 2 years, to have the Northern Gas Complex on stream, which will be the first non-associated gas development in the country. But what you can also see is that with this project coming on stream, the country will really be reaching its gas processing capacity at the LNG terminal that is operational in Angola. Then you have all the unsanctioned volumes in red, the majority of which is in the Kwanza Basin. So if we move to the chart on the right-hand side, you can see how we have broken down the various discoveries. We have tried to estimate production rates. The potential is clearly over 1.5 BCF per day. So significant uptick to the gas production of the country if these volumes were to be realized. And lastly, we did a small exercise. One of the key elements when it comes, as I mentioned at the beginning, to FLNG projects and LNG projects, but FLNG projects as well, is the project economics. So what we are showing here is a fiscal comparison. What did we do is that we modeled a typical FLNG project. So we estimated production volumes, CapEx for the upstream part of the project, CapEx for the liquefaction part of the project, and the associated OpEx facilities. And what we did was that we tried to estimate the NPV for various price scenarios. So starting from the bottom, we used some of the older Angola terms. Then we ran the same cost through the Angola 2019 terms. And then we thought that it would be interesting to compare this to the Mozambique terms, since we know that there is a project in the country which is currently operational, which was deemed as an attractive investment from the operator. So what we can clearly see is that Angola has made very positive steps in terms of improving the economics, of creating an environment that is more attractive for investors. And actually, when we compare the 2019 terms to the Angola terms, we can see that the results are very comparable. So you can see how for the lower price scenario, the bar has moved more to the right. So it's, let's say, more towards the marginal side of things. If we consider the low price scenario, if we consider the medium price scenario, we have healthy economics. And of course, for the high price scenario, the net present value is even better. One thing to consider is that we did this for a project where the recoverable gas resources is 10 TCF. However, we took one more step. We wanted to understand what would be the minimum economic field size for a project like this. By field, in this case, we mean recoverable volumes. So we also ran this same case for a case where the recoverable resources are 5 TCF and another case where the recoverable resources are 15 TCF. And what you can see again is that the results are very similar. Again, Angola has made very positive steps in terms of improving the economics. And again, we see the results to be very comparable to the Mozambique fiscal terms. And last one, a few last thoughts. FLNG is now a proven strategic tool with a track record within the continent and the potential to unlock more resources. It offers speed, flexibility, and scalability. It enables monetization of stranded gas. Policy alignment is key to move forward, and even smaller developments can be viable, especially if we consider converted vessels where the cost can be managed. CapEx is higher, however, with the right fiscal terms, this can be managed and the projects can be viable. Last but not least, contractual structure can vary depending on the project, but it looks like collaboration between the authorities, the interesting parties, both in terms of the operator of the project, but also of the FLNG, can help in terms of creating a viable project. That's it from us. Thank you.